And we're live.
Thanks, Lisa. Hello and welcome to the first Ask the Expert session here with 3C Logic. My name is Abid Hoke. I'm a senior project manager and implementation specialist here at 3C Logic. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today on today's demonstration and technical discussion about how to build a natively integrated call center to drive successful ServiceNow customer service initiatives. Let's go and get started. Before we go into the demo today and before we go into our discussion today, let's do a quick overview of 3C Logic itself. So who is 3C Logic or what is 3C Logic? 3C Logic is a leading provider of cloud communications as a service, offering a seamless and automated way to integrate day-to-day customer engagements with various service management platforms and systems of record like ServiceNow. You'll notice on the left-hand side, 3C Logic is a Silver Technology partner and our integration is now certified. Before we go into the how to build a natively integrated call center within ServiceNow, let's take a minute to talk a little bit about why you would want to do so. So I've been a project manager and implementation specialist at 3C Logic for a little over 5 years. So we hear countless use cases and countless errors or pain points that most of our clients face on a daily basis. So I've highlighted 3 of the main use cases or pain points that most of our clients bring up on a consistent basis. The first one is connecting a communication channel or your contact center with data in ServiceNow. So if you can imagine the desk phone that you have on your desk and how to integrate that or how to have correlation with that within ServiceNow. It's little to no integration or little to no connectivity between both. The information that's on your desk phone or information that's on your contact center is completely separate from what's in ServiceNow. So that's a pain point. Gaining control of a customer journey without technical or little technical assistance or experience. So a common use case that I face on a consistent basis is an administrator or a supervisor saying, hey, Abid, I can't go in and simply change a media file on my IVR, or I can't go in and adjust the ability for an agent to answer a call within a queue. So the struggle between adjusting that customer journey or adjusting that user experience. And then finally, consolidated reports for a complete view into your enterprise. So again, a common use case, we have information within our contact center environment, but we don't have any correlation within data in ServiceNow. Or we have all the data within ServiceNow, but we have limited to no information within the contact center environment. So again, that correlation or limited connectivity between both is a pain point or a common use case that's brought up. So throughout our journey today and what we'll talk about in just a few moments, we'll talk about these pain points and how having a natively integrated contact center can address this for you. And then we'll highlight some of the benefits. So the benefits being better change control, more efficient representatives or providing representatives with tools and resources to be more efficient. And then finally, improving visibility into what drives a successful engagement within your ServiceNow environment. So now that we talked about the why, let's talk about the how. And what we'll do is we'll actually go through a journey and we'll talk about these 4 key points that are essentially the building blocks of what we'll cover today. One being OpenFrame, the second milestone being IVR or interactive voice response. The third being the integration designer, native in 3C Logic. And then finally, we'll wrap up with reporting and analytics. So let me bring over what most of us should be very familiar with on the 3C on the ServiceNow environment, just our ServiceNow portal. The screen real estate has the ServiceNow on the top left-hand side. And let's talk about the first item of our journey, or the first item of our milestone is the OpenFrame. Now, what is OpenFrame? OpenFrame is OpenFrame is actually a ServiceNow provided module that allows for development real estate, again, on the screen that we see here, that freely floats on the screen on any ServiceNow instance. So you'll notice, again, a very familiar screen, but if I go to the top right-hand side of my screen, I'm able to see a small phone icon. If I select that phone icon, this is where I'm presented with the 3C Logic CTI or built-in CTI. The OpenFrame module is actually a standard free of cost offering within ServiceNow's instance. However, it does come disabled. So at 3C Logic, we've leveraged the power of this CTI or OpenFrame module to allow an agent experience that delivers a perfect combination of flexibility and functionality to perfectly package telephony controls to manage inbound and outbound calls, as well as posting back data within ServiceNow. Again, as I mentioned, since OpenFrame is natively available within ServiceNow, if I actually type in OpenFrame here, you'd be able to see directly from our system properties how that's configured and where it's actually configured within ServiceNow. So I'll jump back over, and again, this is where an agent experience would allow for inbound and outbound calling functionality. So if I go into customer service, for example, and contacts, this is where I'd be able to, as an agent, utilize the click-to-call functionality to make an outbound call and manage that entire experience during that call process. So you'll notice here on the screen, I can go ahead and select call, and directly from my click-to-call, I'd get a screen pop that shows up, and I can actually initiate that call. I'll go ahead and end the call here, but I have all the navigation functionality here as well. At the end of that interaction, I can finalize the call, or let's select a disposition or a result at the end of that interaction, hit finalize, and I've completed that interaction. I'm back to my dashboard section here. Again, as I mentioned, flexibility and functionality. I don't have to have this on my screen real estate. I can simply minimize it, and it goes away from my screen real estate. The moment I want to bring it back, I'm able to bring it right back on my screen and manage the call interaction accordingly. Now, if we touch a little bit about how that OpenFrame allows for the integration, you'll notice here on the phone log table, I'm also posting back data. So I can see the last call that I made will post back who I called, the actual recording of that call, any specifics or durations of that call can all get posted back here as well. So why did we choose OpenFrame? It was almost a no-brainer in making this decision of why to utilize or choose OpenFrame within ServiceNow. By using this module, it allows 3C Logic to be one of the first certified telephony platforms, from our knowledge, within ServiceNow Store. So what does that mean? Our integration has to always be compatible with any version of ServiceNow. We also have to meet ServiceNow integration requirements and pass any ServiceNow security and compliance requirements as well. So this integration would have to always stay on par with that. Another common use case that we see highlighted by most of our clients is the fact that we might have a large organization that has a user base that doesn't necessarily need to see the CTI as we see here today. However, they do have users that need to see it. So how do we segment that? Since OpenFrame is role-driven, you're able to segment what users or what agents need to be able to see this view and what agents do not need to see this view to have an undisturbed or maintain an undisturbed experience within ServiceNow. So again, we talked a little bit about OpenFrame. Now let's talk about the next phase of our journey. The OpenFrame and the 3C Logic CTI are essentially the outcomes of what gets managed on the administrative portal or on the administrative side of things. So what we've done as of the ServiceNow Knowledge 18 event, we've provided a K18 release where anyone who's familiar with the contact center environment or has done any research within a contact center environment, you'll know that there's an administrative portal that you would have to manage or access. We've actually taken that administrative portal and we've brought it directly into ServiceNow. So you can see here, the 3C Logic administrative portal is in ServiceNow. And let's actually start managing our contact center environment. So ultimately, the ability to build a natively integrated contact center is contingent on having the appropriate building blocks to make up a contact center from the foundation up. So that includes things like IVRs, queues, user segmentation, and most importantly, the reporting aspect or the analytics aspect to the entire environment. But let's touch a little bit about IVRs and change management like we talked about in our use cases. If I go to help desk, for example, I can jump into my help desk project within my administrative portal. I can go on my IVR, and again, one of the use cases that I talked about most recently that one of my clients mentioned was the ability to go in and simply put in a media file right then and there without having to make a request. Directly from our IVR designer, if I know that maybe I have an outage or maybe I have a disturbance that's happening within the environment. I'm able to go in here, select the media file, whatever desired media file that I need, hit save, and now I can change this user experience or call flow to go here and play this media file, display whatever that disturbance is, or say, you know, we're experiencing higher than normal call volume. I'm able to do that on the fly and then bring the call right back to my main menu. Again, in less than 10 seconds, I'm able to make that change. Again, not any in-depth technical requirements that are required. It's a simple drag and drop functionality where I was able to drag over my media, bring it over here, and then select the media file that I would like to get played. But again, that's a pretty simple scenario. That's a pretty simple use case of changing a media file or change management. Let's talk about how to build an entire user experience from the ground up. So if I go to projects, I can go into my projects. Again, I'll jump into my help desk or customer service, whichever IVR that I want to create. And let's actually create an IVR from the ground up. So I have my marketing IVR there. Let's create a new IVR called Let's Ask Abid. That's going to be our new IVR. Again, I'm creating that IVR directly from the administrative portal. I don't have to go to an external portal to manage my contact center. I'm doing that all within ServiceNow. So I can drill down on this IVR that I'm creating, and you'll notice that on the left-hand side, I have a few commands. So I have my common commands and I have my voice commands, common being our navigation and voice being the logic that we want to put on our IVR. So I'll drag over our start menu is exactly what it sounds like. And let's go over some common use cases of building an IVR. We obviously want to make sure that we have time-based routing. On the time, I could see if I hover over time, green being during business hours, red being outside of business hours. Let's talk about business hours for our focus today. I'll bring over the menu option. I can drag over menu here, and you'll notice that as soon as I drag over the menu option, I'm presented with the ability to configure my menu directly from my IVR configurator. Let's use option 1 for cases, option 2 for contacts, and option 3 for tasks, for example. So anytime someone calls in, we'll give a menu that provides all 3 of these options. You'll notice on the left-hand side, we have our traditional selection of media files. So I can go ahead and select any media file that I want from here. If it's a no match, I can select my media file as desired. But you'll notice that we also have a text feature or text functionality. So the days of going and requesting a media file or recording a media file and then trying to upload into contact center environment, we can avoid altogether by utilization of this feature called text-to-speech, or the creation of a media file directly by typing out text. So let's go ahead and select a language option. We'll go ahead and select English Australian. We'll use our buddy Russell as the voice, and let's type out a welcome message. For calling 3C Logic. So once I type that out, I can hit play.
Hello, thank you for calling 3C Logic.
So obviously we have our buddy Russell with his Australian accent, and now I've been able to make a media file directly from our IVR. Again, not having to make a request for an external media file to get uploaded. I can make that change directly here. Now imagine most common the scenario is, or if anyone calls into any menu option, you'll hear a very common phrase, our menu options have changed. So imagine how many times you have to change a menu option throughout the year. You don't have to go in and change a media file or recreate an entire media file. I can go ahead and directly make that change on this text-to-speech feature, and the media file will get updated accordingly. So we'll go ahead and save this, and let's start going down the journey of this IVR. Call comes in, time-based routing, menu option 1. Let's talk about option number 1 in specific. Let's talk about this being cases. So anytime a call comes in, I want someone the caller to provide an input. So I'll go ahead and drag over my input option. Again, under our common is our navigation. So I'll do input. Let's make sure that this is our employee ID. So EMID, so that's our employee ID. Again, we'll just select any media file here, something on the lines of please enter your employee ID. Once that's selected, I can go ahead and save that. And now I'm making the connection of a press 1 needs to capture an employee ID. Once an employee ID is captured, I can bring this HTTP request to say when we do the database dip into ServiceNow, I need to make sure that I do validation. Once the validation is complete, then provide a screen pop. So I can make that connectivity here as well. Once all of that is complete, what do I need the call to do? I need the call to get presented to a specific group that only handles cases, or a specific group of agents or users who will be able to manage that interaction. So then finally, at the last leg of the journey, I'm able to select, transfer the queue to the desired inbound, and I can go ahead and hit save. So here you'll see that I'm able to then finalize that entire experience all the way down to it going to a desired queue in the environment. Now, again, this journey was specific on the call coming to an agent. Now let's talk about the experience, maybe not even having to come to an agent at all. Maybe a task or a request that needs to simply be made of a password reset. We can actually utilize and leverage our 3C Logic IVR functionality to, let's go in our technical support IVR, to do a password reset. So let's talk about the password reset IVR. I can drill down on this IVR, and you'll notice that this mirror is almost identical to the IVR we started creating. I have my start menu here. I have my welcome message. We can focus on option number 1, enter an employee ID, and then we have our validation that happens here. And then within the validation, we have what we're leveraging the ServiceNow orchestration to do a password reset. So not only do we do a password reset and we leverage the power of the 3C Logic IVR to do so, this is an unmanned task. We don't have to have an agent run this process. We can use orchestration to reset the password. Not only that, you'll notice that a task, it can also be created. So once the task is created, from a reporting or analytics perspective, the information is also captured, and you can do reporting on that as well. All right. So again, we were able to, if we kind of summarize that journey, or that section of the journey, we were able to go through and kind of highlight what you're able to do in regards to change management, or at least, you know, adjusting the customer journey or that agent journey that would happen anytime an inbound call comes in. Now let's go into the next phase of our journey, and that's the integration designer within our tool. If I drill down on the integration designer, this is a 3C Logic integration designer, where not only where we were talking about before, where you can kind of manage the entire flow or the entire process when it comes to a calling perspective, but this is where you can manage the actual integration to provide that process, or kind of mimic that process as well. It's separated into 3 different sections. We have our triggers, our matching rules, and our record producers. Let's drill down on triggers. Our triggers are our if-then statements within our integration. So if I go into our triggers, I can talk a little bit about cases of an incoming call. Anytime a call comes in, the IVR needs to capture the case number. If the case number is captured, what do I want it to do? Do I want to action it to open a screen pop, or open a case, or create a case? You're able to manage that here. Down all the way to the granular level of being able to, if it's a one match or a single match, or if it's multiple matches, you'd be able to adjust that accordingly here as well. So once the if-then statement is established, the matching rules would take the if-then statements and then provide that as a screen pop, or as what gets presented to the agent screen or the user screen. Finally, once that interaction is complete, or that call interaction is complete, that's where record producers would come into play. So if we drill down into record producers of the integration, we can leverage, let's say, phone log activity. So if we go to phone log activity, I would be able to capture all of the information within the 3C Logic contact center objects, such as remote party, the duration of the call, the result code. Any data that you can imagine or expect within the contact center environment can now be posted back into CRM fields or ServiceNow objects or tables within the ServiceNow platform. So in turn, kind of completing that integration process, I was able to make a call. At the end of that call, all the data that's within that call is now getting posted into ServiceNow and then held within ServiceNow as well. So all that data is captured and held within ServiceNow. So we talked a little bit, again, about that entire process of a call coming in, the change process, the integration designer, and now we highlighted a little bit about how the data that gets captured in ServiceNow is retained in ServiceNow. And if you remember, we talked a little bit about how it's important to have analytics or access to a full body report. So again, within the 3C Logic administrative portal in ServiceNow, because we have data within ServiceNow, you can actually go to the 3C Logic dashboard or reporting tool to now see the correlation of data from a contact center perspective to data within ServiceNow. So if we see on our left-hand side, I'm able to get a native agent report or 3C Logic agent report that shows me agent performance, agent statistics, or activities throughout the day for this particular agent or group of agents. I can see the phone log activity or phone log count coming to a total of 207, and how that correlates to information within ServiceNow. So the dispositions or any references, follow-ups, or appointments that need to get set within the environment here as well. And then 3C Logic call type reports or analytics on what type of calls have been happening throughout the day and the progress of those calls. Right? So again, if we kind of summarize the entire process, having that natively integrated contact center experience covers the pain points and covers that the journey on being able to have a benefit of better change control, providing more efficient experience for our representatives, and then having an improved visibility on what drives successful engagements within the environment or within the entire ServiceNow environment. So I wanted to kind of close off by saying if there's any questions. This was more of a technical demo and discussion in the sense of showing you the benefits of why having a natively integrated call center in ServiceNow is beneficial or important. If there's any questions within the environment, if there's any questions that anyone has, we strongly recommend that anyone go to the community to post any questions, or if you're on the YouTube live session, please feel free to post questions there. We're more than happy to answer those questions for you, and it'll be an ongoing process to answer these questions. So feel free to continue to ask questions there, and then hopefully we can come back and share some more information on the benefits of why building a natively integrated call center within ServiceNow is so important.
Maybe I'm not seeing any more questions posted yet, but we can always find them in the community.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa.
Awesome. See you soon. Thanks for
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.